Hi, everybody. Today we are answering the question, how can caregivers learn to say no and feel really comfortable about saying no? There's been a lot of discussions with caregivers this week about interacting with aging parents or siblings or grandparents or people in their lives who are unappreciative, maybe verbally abusive, maybe they feel entitled. Maybe you have parents who just like drop by and show up at your house and expect you to drop everything. So, a lot of talk with caregivers this week about behaviors and how to respond to behaviors that caregivers find challenging. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about behaviors and how caregivers can learn to become more comfortable about saying no instead of saying yes all the time and taking on all these responsibilities and duties that you would rather not do or that are really just sucking the life out of your life. I'm Pamela D Wilson. I'm a caregiving expert. Please click below, like my YouTube channel, follow my YouTube channel so that more people who are looking for hope, help, and support about caregiving can find it. I have a caregiving group on Facebook. It's called the Caregiving Trap. You can go search there and request to join it. My website, PamelaDWilson.com, has online courses and my podcast, The Caring Generation, made up of 20 years of my experience navigating care and helping caregivers throughout the United States. So let's talk about learning to say no. Because learning to say no really takes a little bit of practice so that you become comfortable saying no in a really nice way that other people understand, even though they may not like the fact that you're saying no, they may have a better understanding of why you're saying no, right? And the problem with caregivers is saying no many times makes you feel guilty. But what you're going to notice is the more that you say no, the more control you will regain over your life. You'll feel like your days are more manageable, your time is less up and down and all over the place, and you won't be like spinning and wondering what you're doing, and you'll have more mental focus. So I want to start this conversation by talking about boundaries because there can be a lot of misunderstandings about what a boundary means if you are the caregiver or if you are the older person or if you're in a relationship with somebody who seems to like not have boundaries. Is it really that they don't have boundaries, or is it that you as the caregiver has not set firm boundaries? And so I'll share an example from this week. So caregiver said to me this week, oh my gosh, Pamela, my mom, she just will not stop calling me. And I said, well, what are you doing? Are you answering the phone every time she calls? And the caregiver's like, well, of course. And I'm like, therein lies your problem. You're saying that your mother doesn't have boundaries because she calls you all the time, yet you're the one answering the phone all the time. Every time you answer the phone, what does that tell your mother? That no matter how many times she calls or when she calls, you're going to pick up the phone. So you as the caregiver need to set boundaries and say, Mom, I work all day. I'm happy to talk to you between 5 and 6 o'clock. Otherwise, unless it's life or death, and you text me, I'm not going to answer the phone. Then you as the caregiver needs to stop picking up the phone, and you only need to answer it between 5 and 6 o'clock so that you're setting a boundary and you're sticking to the boundary. So here's another way to think about, like, do I say yes or do I say no? Every time that you have something important, right? I mean, a simple yes, like, do I want a sandwich? You don't even have to think about that, right, if you're hungry. But if you have a more important decision to make that's going to have an effect on your time, relationships, work, all of that, start asking yourself, why would I do this? Why wouldn't I do this? Why would I put myself in this situation? Or if I put myself in this situation, what is likely to happen? And let's relate this to something simple that we can all talk about. Like maybe you purchase something for $50 or $100 or $500. and you're thinking, should I buy this? Should I not buy this? What are the effects? And you're just like, oh, you know what? I want it. I'm just going to buy it. But then you get that credit card bill and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a $500 bill and I can only pay $20 this month. And that means I'm going to be paying this off forever. What was I thinking? So next time this happens, next time you have to make an important decision about something, whether it's, spending $20 or $50 or $500, ask yourself, why would I do this? Why would I not do this? Do I really need it? Is it necessary? What are the short and long-term effects going to be? And it's not that you have to analyze every decision that you make for a yes or no, but the more important ones, you really should look at these from the perspective of, why would I do this to myself? Why would I put myself in a position of buying something that I can't afford? Why would I put myself in a position of agreeing to spend every weekend at my parents' house in caregiving activities? What's that going to do to the rest of my life? When you start doing that and even writing it down on a piece of paper, it's easier to look at actions and behaviors and say, this doesn't make sense. This does make sense. And part of the problem too is we have to become more self-aware. So it's the ability to stop and say, okay, I got a decision to make. Does this make sense? Does it not make sense? And even to think about it, if it's an important decision, don't make a snap decision. Think about it for a day or a week or 2 weeks and start writing down, like, how can I evaluate this? How can I look at this problem? What other things should I investigate? Are there other options? Do I know anybody who's done this before that I can talk to? So by making time to think about the situation and having that self-restraint or insight that says, I don't want to decide about this right now. And it's okay for you to say to somebody, hey, I am not really sure if I want to do that. So I'm not going to give you a yes or a no answer right now. I need to think about this and then I will get back to you. So sometimes delaying making an important decision is a good thing because then it gives you time to think about it. How many times have you thought, well, I want to do this. Then you go to bed and you wake up the next day and you're like, man, I'm glad I didn't make that snap decision. Now I've thought of all these other things over here about questions that I have about why do I or not want to do that thing. So it's avoiding temptation to decide quickly. So some big ones, right? Some big ones for why would I do this to myself? Why would I move aging parents into my home? Why would I move 2,000 miles across the country to take care of my parents? If you are parents and you have children, right? Think about how hard it was to get your children out of your house and keep them out of your house, right? Maybe they kept coming back. Maybe they didn't want to move out. Maybe they're still living in your basement. If you can't get your kids out of your house, how on earth are you going to get your aging parents out of your house if you move them in? You probably will never do that. What is that going to do to the rest of your life? Now, it doesn't mean that saying no is right for everybody or saying yes is right for everybody. I know some people who have moved their parents into their house and it's worked out great. I know other people, the minute they did it, they were asking like, oh, why did we do this? What were we even thinking about? So again, there's two sides to every decision. You have to evaluate and make the right one for yourself. Another one, why would I do this to myself? Why would I spend evenings and weekends caring for my aging parents when I have a job and a husband and children and maybe a dog and a social life? What do you think is going to happen to all these parts of your life that you are trading to care for somebody when you neglect these parts of your life that are very supportive and that make you happy and that are going to fulfill you for years to come? What we often don't think about in caregiving situations is that, the caregivers, most of the time, they're younger, unless you're a spousal caregiver, then you might be the same age. But our parents, older people, have lived their lives. They're 60, they're 70, they're 80, they're 90, right? They've had 90 years of like a lifetime. If you're a caregiver and you're 20 years old, you got 90, well, maybe not 90, but maybe like 70 years ahead of you, right? Weigh that life experience. If you're an older person, why would you ethically do that to one of your children? Why would you strip away your child's ability to go to college and get married and have children? You've lived your life. You've made your choices. Why are you forcing the results of the choices that you made on someone else? How ethical is that? How moral is that, right? Life is hard, and the problem with all of us is we don't realize that doing X may result in Y or may exclude our ability to do Y if we don't put a lot of thought into these yes and no decisions. And in many cases, the easiest answer or the simple answer that comes to us may not always be the right thing. It may not be the best path forward. Sometimes thinking about it and doing the harder thing, even though, it may delay getting what we want, might be the better thing in the long run. So it's really about looking at yes or no, what are the effects today, what are the effects in the future, and the long-term effects. So as a caregiver, saying yes when you'd rather say no should be that sign that says, I need to think about this. I'm not going to say yes or no right now. I want to think about this. I want to evaluate it. I want to think about the effects. Because again, our aging loved ones have lived their lives, and there are options for their care that do not always necessitate that an adult child or someone else gives up their life to care for that person. They made it in life all along this way by themselves. All of a sudden, now that they need help, are they relying on other people to come to their rescue and to solve their problems? And while caregivers want to be helpful, and there's nothing wrong with that, find a balance between saying yes and no. Set some boundaries. Look at your caregiving situation. Look at your life situation. Look at how this is going to affect the rest of your life. And then decide, do I say yes or do I say no? I'm Pamela D Wilson. Thanks for being here with me for this video. I appreciate it. Again, please press the like button. Please press the share button below so other people can find these videos and the caregiving support that I offer. My website, PamelaDWilson.com, on there, the Caring Generation podcast, over 160 episodes, my online caregiver program, How to Care for Aging Parents and Yourself. Thanks for being here. I will see you all again soon in another video.